Hello and welcome back, and everybody. Today we got some brand new spoilers here from Wilds of Eldraine. So I'm going to be going over one of the commanders that was spoiled today. So most of my decks that I usually make are pretty budget considerate. I usually try to keep them around that like $50 to maybe around $100 range. It's usually due to just a couple cards that bump up the price. However, for this one, I'm going to make it a little more expensive because just the theme of what is actually going on in the deck basically requires a higher budget. So let's just go over the commander here. It's Talion, the Kindly Lord. I'm guessing it's Kindly. It's 2, a blue, and a black for a 3/4 Fairy Noble with flying. It says, as Talion, the Kindly Lord, enters the battlefield, choose a number between 1 and 10. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value, power, or toughness equal to the chosen number, that player loses 2 life, and you draw a card. So obviously, you're going to want to be able to pick the most common number. I would say probably 2 or 3 is probably your best bet. I thought it would be better if we can choose multiple numbers, so the only way I could think to do that is to put in a bunch of clone effects, hence where the majority of the deck's budget is going to, since a lot of the clone effects in blue are very expensive, between $5 and $10 a piece, sometimes even 20 with some of them. So first up, we'll go over some of the best clones I have in the deck. First one we got here, Spark Double, 3 and a blue for a 0/0 illusion. It says you may have Spark Double enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature or planeswalker you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature, and additional loyalty counter if it's a planeswalker, and it isn't legendary. So obviously these ones that get around the legendary rule are going to be our best ones. You know, there's several in the deck here, such as Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. It's 3 and a blue for a 3/1 human rogue. It says you may have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of another target creature you control, except it has Sakashima of 1,000 Faces other abilities. And it says the legend rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. This one is by far the best one because we want that legend rule to be gone for any of our other clones. However, if we have this one out, or if we have, say, our Spark Double out, we can use the ones that don't skirt the legendary rule to just copy that one. Say something like a Quasi Duplicate, 1 blue sorcery, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and it has Jumpstart, so you get another one. So you can use Quasi Duplicate on a Spark Double, and that'll still get around the legendary rule because the Spark Double isn't legendary. And similarly, we got Irenicus's Vile Duplication, 3 and a blue for a sorcery, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except the token has flying and isn't legendary if that creature is legendary. Again, pretty much they're all around the same theme. You just want to be able to copy your commander and make sure it's not legendary, so you get to keep multiple out on the field at a time. So the plan with this, I would probably stop at 4, choose between 1 and 4, and then any additional ones you have after that, you could choose 5 or 6 if you want. I don't really think it's necessary. I think I would probably rather double up on the 1 through 4. If I have more than 4 copies of my commander, I would choose, 2 again or 3 again, so that way you get multiple triggers off the 1. Something to note here, so say you have 2 of your Talions out, and one of them's choosing 2, and the other one's choosing 4. If an opponent casts, say, like a 4 mana value 2/2, so you'll get both triggers, 1 for the 4 for the mana value, and the 2 for the 2/2 in its power and toughness. That is something to keep in mind with this guy. So this one seems really fun. I really like the idea of this. So obviously with our commander, we're going to be drawing a lot of cards since we're going to be having multiple copies of it, and our opponents are going to be losing 2 life every time they play a spell, basically. So with that in mind, I kind of built around our opponents losing life and us drawing cards. So I'm going to go over some of the payoffs of us drawing cards. Firstly, we got Psychosis Crawler, 5 mana for a star Phyrexian Horror. It says Psychosis Crawler's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. So it looks like the win con for this deck is most likely going to be ping damage with our commander and other effects like Psychosis Crawler. Another way we can get value off of the cards that we're drawing off our commander is with something like Psychic Corrosion. It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. So with how much you're going to be drawing in this deck, I think it's pretty reasonable that you could actually mill out some of your opponents. Even if you don't mill them out, just getting rid of some of their best options is a pretty good idea. Another one here, we got Gixian Puppeteer, 3 and a black for a 4/3 Phyrexian Warlock. Whenever you draw your second card, each turn, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. And when Gixian Puppeteer dies, return another target creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is good recursion. We can get maybe one of our clones back, another creature if we need to. However, that second card each turn is going to be pretty useful since it's highly likely that we're going to be drawing 2 cards each turn if we have several copies of our commander out. All our opponents have to do is play, sometimes not even 2. They can cast 1, and if we have, say 2 of our commanders that are choosing 2 and it's a 2 mana value or power or toughness, you're getting both the card draw. So I think it should be pretty easy to get that second card each turn. So I have a few other second card each turn matters cards. Another one here, Ethereal Investigator, 3 and a blue for a 2/3 spirit with flying. When Ethereal Investigator enters the battlefield, investigate X times, where X is the number of opponents you have. Nice that it slaps a little bit of card draw on there. However, whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. This just helps us put up some blockers so we don't get the crackback, since I don't think our opponents are going to be loving our strategy that much. It is kind of like a Punisher build. Speaking of that, I do have some other things that will punish our opponents pretty much just for playing the game. First up, we got Nightshade Harvester, 3 and a black for a 2/2 Elf Shaman. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, that player loses 1 life, and then you also put a +1/+1 counter on Nightshade Harvester. Just punishing our opponents for playing anything. Obviously, our commander is punishing them for casting spells, whether it be creatures or instants or sorceries. Nightshade Harvester also covers the lands. Another Punisher card we got here, Mage Hunter, 3 and a black for a 3/4 horror. It says whenever an opponent casts or copies an instant or sorcery spell, they lose 1 life. Similarly, we got Isolation Cell, 4 mana for an artifact. Whenever an opponent casts a creature spell, that player loses 2 life unless they pay 2. I've been waiting to put this card in a deck for so long, and it is an absolute slam dunk in this deck. They're gonna be losing 2 off of each of your commanders and also off of the Isolation Cell unless they're paying 2. So that is some extreme value. I like all of the little punishing effects we're doing here, just whittling down our opponents. Probably one of the best fits in the deck here. Bloodchief Ascension, it's 1 black for an enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension. That shouldn't be too hard since our commander is pinging them for the 2 damage every time they play a spell. Also, it says whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, which is pretty simple, you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, you gain 2 life. So pretty much like a pseudo backup for our commander. Just helps us drain out our opponents and pushing our game plan along. There's not too much to talk about for the ramp removal and the land and stuff like that, so I'm just gonna go straight into our last category here, which is just the general utility. First up, we got Mirror Box and Mirror Gallery. They're pretty much the same thing. We're playing them so that we can get that legend rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. Also with Mirror Box, it says each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1, and each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each creature you control with the same name as that creature. That last ability is important because our commander is a 3/4 flyer. With this out, could be a 4/5 flyer. So pumping up our clones with our Mirror Box is actually a viable strategy, since the plan is just to get our opponent's life totals down to 0 as quick as we can, and this could actually help us out with some extra damage. Speaking of extra damage, we got Feast on the Fallen. It's 2 and a black for an enchantment. It says at the beginning of each upkeep, if an opponent lost life last turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. That's pretty much going to be every single upkeep. That's 4 times per rotation, 4 counters per rotation. So that seems really strong in this sort of strategy. And then obviously to go grab our Mirror Box or Mirror Gallery, I threw in some artifact tutors like Fabricate, 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So it's absolutely crucial that we get one of our Legend Rule Matters cards, such as Mirror Box or Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. That way we can just go wild with all of the clones we have. So it's pretty much like my version 1 of the deck. Just some things I thought off the top of my head on this first day. I just wanted to get this video out as quick as I could. I just got home from work and then wanted to make this one right away. I didn't have a chance to watch anyone else's videos, so there's probably some additions I could be making to this deck. However, I kind of just wanted to get my thoughts out there first on my own video, and then I could probably tune it up after that. This one I might actually make in paper. However, it is pretty pricey, and most of my decks don't cost this much, so we'll see, and we'll see what kind of other strategies other people come up with. But that's my deck here. If you guys enjoyed it and you want to see the full deck list, it's down in the description. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one, all right? Take care.